Way. Welcome, you all. Thank you guys for joining us, and especially to those of you who are joining us for the first time. We're very, very glad to have you. I'm going to share my screen and go on with this presentation. Whoever invited you today invited you to listen to a very exciting science, which I want to share, which should give you hope and hope to anybody you know who suffers from any chronic medical condition. So, there we go. So, my name is Dr. Dieter. I'm a double board certified physician as an internist as well as a pediatrician. And today, what I want to do is to take you through a fascinating science of current chronic modern day diseases. The science now shows that most of our modern day diseases, as a result of, are being driven by something we call metabolic dysfunction, which is just simply a fancy medical term to say energy shortage. Okay. That energy shortage in itself is driven by two things, two entities, something we call insulin resistance as the first contributing entity, and microbiome dysfunction, what we call dysbiosis, as the second contributing entity. These two things result in an energy shortage. That energy shortage then drives all the modern day, that energy shortage then drives all the modern day diseases that we face. What did I do to my, give me 1 second. Yeah, that energy shortage then drives all the modern day diseases that we face. So, today I'm going to be talking to us about how those modern day diseases come as a result of energy shortage coming from insulin resistance, and gut dysbiosis. Now, let's examine each of them individually. I want to start with insulin resistance. What is insulin resistance? To be able to understand what insulin resistance is important to understand what insulin does in the first place. A very important hormone. Okay. And by the way, when I talk about insulin resistance for the purpose of this talk, let's keep it simple. It just simply means that insulin is not working well when you talk about insulin resistance. Now, the job of insulin is this. The job of insulin is to mobilize. Insulin is a very critical hormone in the body. I consider insulin to be hormone numero uno in terms of importante. It has a very critical job. It's like the CEO of the company. When insulin is working well, it dictates the it dictates the smooth structure and functioning of the company, of the body. When insulin is not working well, what happens is then that critical systems fail, the body stops working well. Why is insulin important? Because of this job. The job of insulin is to mobilize glucose out of the blood into the cell. You see, when we eat, glucose is released into the blood. That glucose that is released into the blood is supposed to go into the cell. Insulin's job is to move that glucose out of the blood into the cell. In the cell, there's a small special factory here called energy factory here called the mitochondria. In the mitochondria, what happens is that the glucose goes through a complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain. And when it goes through that complex series of reactions called the electron transport chain, it results in the production of an energy molecule called ATP. ATP is just simply energy. Now, why is every cell in the body requires energy to function? The cell is the smallest entity of the body. Cells group up to form tissues, organs group up to form system, and the system forms the whole man. So every single cell in the body requires energy to function. When a cell doesn't have the energy that it needs to function, the cell malfunctions. The simplest definition of a disease is a group of cells, tissues, organelles, system that has malfunctioned. And the number one reason why the cell malfunctions, the number one reason why the cell malfunctions is that the cell doesn't have the energy it needs to function. There's a simple definition for a disease. So then why is insulin so important? Because without insulin, we cannot make energy, and energy is needed for every cell to function. So we say that you have insulin resistance when there is a breakdown in this process. A breakdown in insulin mobilizing glucose out of the blood into the cell so that energy can be produced. When there's a breakdown, we say you have insulin resistance, your insulin not working well. Now, how does that happen? Once upon a time ago, our insulin was working well. How do you develop insulin resistance or this breakdown? That happens in two processes. The very first process in which you develop insulin resistance is what is through accumulation of too much fat in the cell. Okay, too much fat in the cell. Now, a cell is normally supposed to look like this. When you consume more calories, so that's a normal form of a cell. When you consume way more calories than you're supposed to, the body takes those excess calories and converts those excess calories into fat. Chronic overnutrition results in calories that are converted into fat. The body takes that fat now and doesn't know what to do with it and goes and stores the fat into this cell. I'm just drawing a replica of this cell. So the body now comes and lumps fat into this cell. This cell now becomes pregnant and becomes what I call a fat laden cell. It's filled with fat. And that's not good because, the job of insulin is that when you have glucose in the blood, insulin is going to tell this cell, hey, take off glucose so that we can make energy. You now have this cell that is fat laden. When insulin comes and knocks on the door of this cell and say, hey, cell, knock, knock, I got glucose in the blood. I want you to open your door so that we can take insulin in, take glucose in. The cell tells insulin, I'm sorry. I have no room in the inn. If I bring glucose in, I'm filled with fat. If I bring glucose in, glucose will have no place to lay its head. And so the cell refuses to open its doors when insulin knocks to let glucose in. And because glucose cannot go in, it cannot pass through the electron transport chain to make energy. You have a breakdown in that process. That's insulin resistance. So that's the first way. Now, what happens is that leads to a second issue that worsens the breakdown, the insulin resistance. So fat is now building up in the cell, right? Is now not able to get into the cell. So, glucose is not able to get into the cell because the cell is filled with fat. So that glucose starts accumulating in the blood. Okay, glucose accumulates in the blood. There is a one-to-one relationship between the concentration of glucose in the blood and the amount of insulin produced by the pancreas. So when glucose is high, the pancreas has to produce a commensurate amount of insulin to match the glucose concentration. So glucose is accumulating in the blood because it has no way to enter this fat-laden cell. It now results in the second problem, too much insulin because of the one-to-one relationship. Too, too much insulin. So glucose accumulates in the blood. A trigger is sent to the pancreas to say, hey, there's a lot of glucose in the blood because of this backlog. You need to produce a commensurate amount of insulin high to match that glucose. So the pancreas now produce too much insulin, and too much insulin is no bueno. Too much insulin is like the CEO of a company that normally ran the company smooth, comes to work one day, he has gone crazy. He's backing at commands, he's backing out orders to employees, he's giving unreasonable demands, coming to somebody, yelling to them, embarrassing them, saying, you're gonna do it my way or the highway, dragging people from left and right, firing people for no good reason. So if you have a boss like that dad who was initially humble-headed, level-headed, ran the company smoothly, and one day he comes to work, he has gone crazy. What happens is that the employees of that boss are going to lose their respect for the boss. And if you lose your respect for your boss, you're not excited to do what the boss asks you to do. So what happens is that when the boss tells you, I want you to get this stuff done for me, you now do it reluctantly. You do it because you don't want to lose your job, but you don't do it to the best of your ability. Let's translate that to the cell. Insulin is the CEO of the body. When insulin becomes too much, insulin is acting as a bully and a tyrant to the cell. That bullying and tyrannic effect that insulin is having on the cell loses its respect for insulin. When the cell loses its respect for insulin, the cell is reluctant to do what insulin asks the cell to do. So when insulin comes to this cell and to the cell and tells the cell, open your doors this wide so that I can let glucose in. A cell in its reluctance because of loss of respect for it, the cell opens its doors this wide. When the cell opens its doors this wide, a narrower door means that less glucose gets into the cell and more glucose remains in the blood. That causes the accumulation of more glucose in the blood. That accumulation of more glucose into the blood is a further trigger for the pancreas to produce even more insulin. Okay, and that even more insulin is like going from fry pan to fire. It's as if you had a boss who had gone crazy at this level, and then the boss raises his craziness level from here to here. So translate that to the cell. Insulin becomes even a bigger tyrant and a bully to the cell when insulin becomes even more elevated. The cell loses even more respect, so you have a vicious cycle like that. So these two things, too much fat and too much insulin, result in insulin resistance. And when you have insulin resistance, it results in this slew of illnesses. A lot of people hear insulin, and the first thing they think about is diabetes. And I want you to take that out of your mind. Diabetes is just one of the bad fruits of the tree of insulin resistance, okay? It just happens to be the most commonly associated fruit. But when your insulin is not working, it's the reason for diabetes. It's also the reason for cancer. It's also the reason for PCOS, also the reason for heart disease, high blood pressure. Remember, guys, what I said, insulin's job is to secure energy. Every cell in the body requires energy to function. The lack of energy causes the cell to malfunction. A simple definition of a disease is a group of cells, tissues, organ, or system that has malfunctioned because of the lack of energy. So everything that needs energy that doesn't have the energy, it becomes a disease process. So unfortunately, this slide is not exhaustive. It does not enumerate all the diseases in the world that are linked to insulin resistance. It's not. This is just a depiction. For the purpose of time, I cannot go into, I would have loved to single one of them just to give you an example. Let's just say very briefly, insulin resistance and cancer. 10 to 20, 10 to 30% of cancers are bad luck, okay? 10 to 20%, 10 to 30% of cancers are bad luck. The other 70% of cancers as a result of insulin resistance resulting in deficiency of energy. Guys, simply, there is a process in our body called DNA repair, okay? We get mutations to our DNA very routinely. The body has a system in place to correct that mutation called DNA repair so that that mutation doesn't propagate into a cancer. Every cell, every single thing in the body requires energy to function. DNA repair requires ATP. So if there's a mutation in a gene and there's insufficiency of energy, ATP, then DNA repair cannot take place. and that mutation now propagates into a cancer. So energy, energy, energy. Let's examine the second entity, microbiome dysfunction. Okay, dysbiosis. To understand what microbiome dysfunction is, let's examine what the microbiome is, which is a group of about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in the colon. You know, a colony about 30 to 100 trillion bacteria that live in the colon. They are called the microbiome. They have a very special function. I want to highlight two functions here. These bacteria that live in the colon, one of the important functions is to protect the gut from pathogenic bacteria. Pathogenic just simply means disease causing bacteria. And they do that by producing a special short chain fatty acid. The short chain fatty acid are produced only by the biological activity of these organisms. You cannot get them from food or water. They're very special molecule. What do they do? What they do is that they um, they reinforce the strength of the cell wall of the colon. You see, the cells of the colon are lined together one to another like this. Imagine my fist. Where my fist meet is one cell to another cell meeting here, and right there where they meet is what you call the tight junction. At the tight junctions, it's a place of vulnerability, weakness in the wall. What happens is that the short chain fatty acids, like concrete, come and pour concrete on this tight junction to keep it tight enough so that bacteria or toxins don't leak out of the colon into the blood. If there is weakness in that tight junction like this because there's not enough cement there, then stuff can go through. And these short chain fatty acids help to reinforce the integrity of the tight junctions. Now, the other thing I want to highlight is what the microbiome does to regulate and train the immune system. You may not know it, but 70% of the body's immune system resides in the gut, and the other 30% resides in the bone marrow, the lymph nodes, the lymphatic. Now, our microbiome is responsible for training the immune system. When your microbiome is healthy, it helps the immune system recognize a threat as a threat, recognize what is not a threat as what is not a threat, and what it recognizes as a threat determines the appropriate level of force to use on that threat. Give you an example. The microbiome may see a bacteria and tell the immune system, you see that bacteria, he's a bad guy, but he's a weak threat. You could take him out with a simple stone. If you just take a stone and shoot it, he's gonna die. He's a threat, but very easily neutralized. So it has identified the threat and given it the appropriate level of force the immune system should use. Um, it also can tell the microbiome, hey, you know what? You see that guy right there? That guy right there, and the immune system may say, hey, I don't see the guy you're talking about. The microbiome says, look at that guy right there. And the immune system is still not able to see. And the microbiome says, listen, the reason you cannot see that guy is that guy is in camouflage. He's hiding like a chameleon. He's in camouflage. Be very careful with that guy. That guy is not a threat. He is not a threat to the body. He's not the enemy. Do not fire at him. He's one of the body cells. He may look like the enemy, but he's not the enemy. Please do not fire at him. Appropriate training that the immune system gets from the microbiome when the microbiome is healthy. When the microbiome is not unhealthy, the opposite happens. The microbiome is tell the immune system, you see that bacteria right there, he's a bad guy. But with this bad guy bacteria, you could probably kill him with just a stone. But why use a stone when we already know that he's a bad guy, he needs to die? Let's just drop a grenade in his backyard, make a big splash. So yes, it's recognized the threat as the threat, but it's giving a huge level of response of force compared to what it needs to neutralize this threat. You're dropping a grenade whereas you could kill this bacteria with a simple stone. The other thing is that when the microbiome is not healthy, it radicalizes the immune system to be trigger happy, to be hot tempered, to be ready to pick a fight. Have you ever met somebody who, you say the smallest thing, it angers them? That's what the microbiome does to the immune system, radicalizes it to attack the body. And it looks like that you may see the guy who is in camouflage, and the microbiome tells the immune system, you know what? I don't got time to decide whether this guy in camouflage is, the enemy or he's a friend. We're in the heat of the moment. Let's just go ahead and neutralize him. Let's blow his head off with some bullets, spray him, neutralize him. We'll take him to the autopsy table, and we're going to determine whether this guy is actually an enemy or a friend later. It's like it trains the immune system to be so trigger happy to shoot first to answer questions later. And that's how autoimmune diseases develop when the immune system doesn't recognize something which is not a threat as not a threat, and it attacks the body. So now understanding what the microbiome is, dysbiosis is a condition where you have an imbalance in the microbial population. You see, in the gut, 50% of the bacteria, what you call bad bacteria, and the other 50% are what you call good bacteria. They balance each other out. We say you have this biosis when the bad bacteria increase in population to 70% and the good bacteria go down, decrease in population to maybe 30%. And that imbalance comes as a result of the shortage of food. You see, the food for the microbiome is fiber. Our foods are not well, we do not consume enough fiber. Because we do not consume enough fiber, these organisms do not have enough food. Anytime there is shortage of food, there's survival of the fetus. Shortage of resources always results in survival of the fetus. It's just like in the COVID period, you go to the grocery store, all the bread is taken off the table, all the off the shelf, all the milk is off the shelf, all the tissue paper is gone. Survival of the fetus, there's panic. So when there's shortage of food because we're not consuming enough fiber, the bad bacteria are the stronger bacteria. What they do is they hoard the little food that is available. After hoarding the little food that is available, they say to themselves, you know what? Since there's so very little food, let's go ahead and increase our army. If we can increase our army, we can keep a hold on this little food that is there. So they increase, at the expense of the bad bacteria. That imbalance in the microbial population is what we call dysbiosis. And when you have dysbiosis, it causes you to have a slew of illnesses. Highlight lupus, autoimmune disease. The microbiome has radicalized the immune system to attack the body. Hashimoto's autoimmune disease, MS autoimmune disease, celiac autoimmune disease. Diabetes also is related to the microbiome in addition to insulin resistance. I want to highlight anxiety and depression because many of you guys may be surprised to realize that anxiety and depression principally comes from the gut. You see, there is a hormone called serotonin. Serotonin, some people call it a hormone, some people call it a neurotransmitter. It is the mood hormone, the mood and happiness hormone. Okay. You'll be surprised to find out that 90% of that hormone is produced in the gut. 90%, and the other 10% is produced in the central nervous system. Now, if you have that partition in hormones, 90% produced in the gut. When you have dysbiosis and the gut is not healthy, that factory cannot put out its product. This is gone. If this is gone and it helps you with mood and happiness, no doubt now why many people who have dysbiosis have anxiety and depression. This slide here, it's what I call the metabolic sequence of disease. It just shows that insulin resistance and dysbiosis are what I'll just highlight here, end up resulting in chronic inflammation. And that chronic inflammation is behind all the diseases and symptoms that we have. Now, as sad as that can be, understanding that there is now there is now evidence that if you reverse, as this may sound dark, all these diseases caused from this and that, but there is hope because there is now evidence that, if you reverse the dysbiosis and you reverse the insulin resistance, those diseases that came, that this stuff that resulted in shortage of energy that resulted in those diseases. When you reverse that, you restore the energy shortages and those diseases reverse. And the analogy that I like to give a lot of times is the analogy of somebody driving a car. You're driving a car and the car runs out of gas. It runs out of gas not because of intrinsic failure of the engine. It runs out of gas. Sorry, the car runs out of gas and stops not because of intrinsic failure of the engine, but because of its energy source. If you walk to the nearest gas station, you buy gas, and you go and come back to your car that had stopped in the middle of the road and put gas in that and put and pump gas back into that car. What happens is when you turn on the ignition, you hear the beautiful sound again of gin. The car roars back to life again. Why? Because you have restored its energy source. Ladies and gentlemen, so it is with the diseases of the body. A simple definition of a disease is a group of cells, tissues, organ, or system that has malfunctioned because of the lack of energy. If you restore the energy that comes as that is lost because of insulin resistance and dysbiosis, those diseases now go away, just like that car, turns on again and roars back to life. And so I want to talk to you about something that has become my favorite tool in helping people take their health back. It's a nutraceutical called the Feel Great System. A nutraceutical is simply a product made 100% from plants and has huge therapeutic benefits and is standardized. Now, there are two things in the Feel Great System. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to use the science of intermittent fasting and this and fiber supplementation in the feel great system to reverse these two things. If these two things, number one and number two, cause all the chronic medical problems, if we can reverse them, then those diseases go away. So let's examine the two products in the feel great system that help to do just that, reverse insulin resistance and reverse these biases. First of which is a product called Udamate, made from a plant native to South America called the yerba mate plant. This plant is very rich in a special phytonutrient called chlorogenic acid. Okay, chlorogenic acid. Now, what chlorogenic acid does is that it has a property called lipolysis. Lipolysis is just simply a fancy medical term to say fat burning. Okay. Now, let's go back to our diagram on how you developed insulin resistance. If you remember, you had this cell that was fat laden and could not take up glucose, and it resulted in glucose not being able to enter the cell. You introduce Unamate, which contains chlorogenic acid with its property of fat burning. Okay, it now comes to this cell that is pregnant with fat and causes fat burning, and this cell now returns to status quo over time like this. It's back to normal. Okay. Now that the cell is emptied of the fat that had occupied it, all the glucose that could not enter the cell now going to the cell. When the glucose that could not enter the cell goes into the cell, that glucose can now be taken up by the electron transport chain to make energy, restoring the energy shortage that led to the disease condition. So you are reversing that. When all that glucose enters the cell, it results in a second thing. The concentration of glucose in the blood now drops. Okay. When the concentration of glucose in the blood drops, a message is now sent to the pancreas to say, we no longer need as much insulin because one-to-one relationship. Please decrease your tone, decrease the amount of insulin. So now the pancreas now goes to producing low insulin. Low insulin is like that CEO who was crazy and now returns to earth. He comes one day to work, realize that he has been a jerk of a boss or CEO. He calls an in-service and tells his employees, hey, listen, I know that I've been a jerk. I'm just realizing I've been a jerk for the last 2 months. The things I said, the unreasonable demands I gave you guys, I fired some of your colleagues for no good reason and what have you. I am so sorry. With a contrite heart, will you forgive me? The employees are taken aback by that humility, and forgive their boss. And what happens immediately? The employees forgive their CEO boss. They regain their respect back for the boss. When the boss asks them to jump, they say, how high? You translate that to the cell. When insulin is now running low, insulin has become humbled. The cell regains its respect back for insulin. So now that insulin is low, I can work with that insulin guy, that humble guy. Now, when insulin now asks the cell to open its doors this wide, the cell is excited and opens its doors this wide. So by introducing the Unimate, it reverses the step of insulin resistance and reverses the step of insulin resistance. So that's what that product does. This fiber, the second product in the product in the nutraceutical, something we call balance. Balance is just simply fiber made from 7 different plants that has been merged together. Fiber is very important for your metabolic health, and fiber actually does exactly the same thing to reverse insulin resistance as Unimate does. So two is better than one. Fiber adds to that. The other thing that fiber does is that fiber helps to decrease your glycemic index. What that means is that fiber blunts your glucose spikes. It decreases carbohydrate absorption because it slows the transit of food through the colon. The slower transit of food through the colon results in slower absorption. Slower absorption results in the slower release of glucose into the blood. The faster transit of food through the colon without fiber results in fast release of glucose. And this is how fiber does it. Let's say you and I went to a favorite Italian restaurant to eat lasagna, and that is you, and that is me. Okay. I know a thing or two about fiber, and you do not know. What you do is you eat your lasagna without any fiber. Your blood sugar is going to do this, and that blood sugar may be a blood sugar of 170. For me, I know a thing or two about fiber. I know it's very important in blunting glucose absorption. And I know that the balanced product contains fiber. So I consume the balance and then I eat exactly the same plate of lasagna that you had. My blood sugar is going to do this. You and I have eaten the exact same quantity of lasagna, but your blood sugar has this profile, my blood sugar has this profile because of the implications of fiber. Now, the ramifications of that is that because your blood sugar is 170, your pancreas is going to have to produce a commensurate higher amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 170. So for you, your pancreas may produce 20 units of insulin, okay? For me, because I've only produced 70 of glucose, my pancreas is going to produce a commensurate lower amount of insulin to deal with that blood sugar of 70. So for me, my pancreas may produce 5 units of insulin. I want you to think of 20 units of insulin as the crazy CEO, okay? That went nuts, that the employees do not respect when insulin is high. And I want you to think as 5 units of insulin as the humble CEO. So fiber makes your insulin to be humble. When your insulin is humble, the cells have more respect for it and are more compliant. That's one thing. That's how fiber contributes to reversing insulin resistance or increasing insulin sensitivity, if you will say it in another way. The other thing that fiber does is that fiber is food for the microbiome. It helps to reverse dysbiosis. You see, every living organism needs food, and unfortunately, we're not consuming enough fiber. Remember, fiber, the lack of food was what resulted in dysbiosis. So, um, When you consume enough fiber, which the Unamate has, it goes and gives enough food for the good and the bad. So there is no reason for the good and the bad to go into competition, and there's no reason for dysbiosis. So every living organism, whether it's a lion in the jungle of Africa, or a bacteria in your gut, requires food. And when you give the microbiome fiber, everybody is happy. It prevents you from having dysbiosis. Unfortunately, guys, we do not consume enough fiber. If you're a man, it's recommended that a man should consume about 38 grams of fiber a day, and a woman should consume about 25 grams of fiber a day. 25 grams of fiber a day. In the United States, the NIH estimates that the average man and woman is consuming in about 10 to 12 grams of fiber a day. Our ancestors consumed anywhere from 80 to 90 grams of fiber a day. So you could see the implications of fiber. Now, um, I want to end by saying this. A feel great system has become one of my favorite solutions because it goes to the core issues, reverses the core issues. And when the core issues are reversed, the diseases that came as a result of the shortage of energy go away. So I end by making this bold statement. If you suffer from any chronic medical condition, or you have a loved one who suffers from any chronic medical condition, chances are they come from these two root causes. And the feel great system, is hope that they can reclaim their health again by addressing those root causes. Thank you for listening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I will hand it on to Dr. Kenny to moderate from here and take any um, take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dieter. Trying to get this. There we go. Thank you so much for your great insight as always, brother. Sorry, this thing is being a little slow. So I'm just going to go through some kind of before and afters, and just we're going to have some people share some testimonies. But the picture of me here on this right was me in February 26th of 2024. I had every sign of insulin resistance, no clue. Many of you just went over all of those, and so my immune system was at bay. It was faltering. Put me in the hospital after my appendix ruptured for almost 2 months. And I kind of made a promise to God I was going to teach the world. I didn't have what Dr. Dieter has showed you yet, but I've learned a long time ago that when you do that and put it out there, He shows you the way. Now this was me 35 days apart with insulin resistance here. You can see I had got fatty liver, sleep apnea, I had high blood pressure, cardiac AFib. I was a wreck, and this was 35 days apart. And so I don't even know how much weight I've lost. I don't even focus on weight. I mean, I'm stronger than I've ever been. I'm doing 25 pull-ups, like legit pull-ups at 48 years young. Sorry I didn't prep you, but this is Keith that's on here. This is a diabetic foot ulcer. And Keith, earlier this year, and he can share this later, but he actually passed away and they brought him back to life. And in a matter of 2 days, Keith was fortunate enough to get off 108 units of insulin. He was diabetic for 25 years. A question I love to ask people, the picture of this husband and wife on the right, they were supposed to be going into their golden years. And if we look at the picture on the left, I mean, if you saw a couple going from that to that, who on here wouldn't ask them what the heck they've done, right? And it mind blows me. But this company that we work with, that Dr. Dieter just shared, I mean, they offer customers a link that you can share with your family and friends because they're going to ask. And when these people ask and they share and you use that discount code, they get the same price that you get, but you get a $10 coupon as our company's way of saying thank you. So it's just this wonderful referral program that they've created. Now, it's a friend of mine, John, I've met through this. John lives down in Brownsville, Texas. And I'll be traveling down to speak in Harlingen next month, and I think January 24th, if memory serves, a Saturday. But John had triple digit high blood pressure numbers. He also had fatty liver, had never drank alcohol in his life. And he also told me he had sleep apnea so badly that he was actually waking up his neighbors. Now, John was 67 when he started this protocol 2 Novembers ago. And in a matter of 6 weeks, he dropped 60 something pounds. He's back in the gym all of the time, as you can see, and he's off all of his medications. He said it's totally transformed his life. Now, here's our own Dr. Dieter. And I had him beat on the weight. Dr. Dieter, I think you said on the picture on the left you were 220,
Yeah,
eating, right? Eating the standard American diet. I call
yeah,
it diabetes. I mean, diet, right? I was
yeah.
240 to 50 in the picture I showed you. Now, 6 years of Dr. Dieter fasting. And people ask us all the time, why not just fast? 1000%. I tell people to fast. The protocol he just shared are a couple tools that just make fasting super simple. And if you've been doing this and fasting simple, go ahead and put FS in the chat for fasting simple. But Dr. Dieter was running 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, long distance, and fasting for 6 years. The picture on the right of him in the pink sport coat, which I do love that coat, brother. This thing right here, this guy, that's the tea and fiber for simply 2 months. Now, this is a friend of mine, Colleen. Colleen, I don't remember how long Colleen was a diabetic, but it was quite a while. And the picture on the right and the one on the left was a year apart. Colleen reversed her type 2 diabetes. She also was able to get off of the metformin. She got off of her statin. She was on 6 medications. She was on a quarter of a thyroid medication on the picture on the left. And she said the way these have been dropping, she said her doctor told her she'd probably be off that. I haven't spoke to Colleen since, but that's what's happened. This is our friend Deb. Now, Dr. Dieter did just an incredible presentation on gut health. And Deb, the picture on the left, Deb was severely insulin resistant. She was a size 12. She had allergies, gut dysbiosis. She had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, low testosterone, and she was getting headaches. And in 7 months, Deb went from a size 12 to size 4. And she reversed her IBS, reversed her allergies, her headaches are gone, and her testosterone is back to normal. Now, this is Angelita, who's a nurse practitioner, lives right in Fort Worth. Many of you know her on the call. But Angelita was taking 6 different medications on the picture on the left. And she started these 10 years ago. She was on 5 for GERD and IBS, and then she was on 1 for depression. And as Dr. Dieter laid out, when your gut is damaged, you're not making serotonin, which is your happy hormone, which is where those depressive medications are known as SSRIs. So this is Angelita. Now, this is something I like to share because the tea it does have caffeine. I had cardiac AFib, which I no longer have. I took this, had 0 issues. I know Keith, I believe you had AFib that's gone, but the reason I'm sharing this is a package of the Unimate, the chlorogenic acid tea in Canada. And it shows you it's low energy. So the tea, if you ever get stressed out and you want to grab some chocolate, you're really grabbing for theobromine. And theobromine is found in the tea. And that also is what trumps the effects of epinephrine or a coffee spike. Now, this is another, apologies, type 2 diabetic foot. And so I just want to show we've had multiple cases of foot ulcers. And normally, guys, Dr. Dieter can attest far better to this than I. If a memory serves, it's 5 years once you lose an appendage. That's about how long you live. And this is a guy showing you step by step what happened to him. This is Keith right here that we'll have share, but this is the next guy I want to introduce, Chopper. And Chopper, you don't even look the same now than what you did just a handful of weeks ago when we did this call, right? It is Keith, nor to you. It's really funny. So I'm going to and before I do that, this is Chris. He's a pastor. And Chris had dropped, I think it was 85 or 90 pounds, got off every medication, guys. Diabetic meds gone, statins gone, high blood pressure, the whole thing has totally transformed Chris' life. But I'm going to stop this share right now. And I'm going to kind of, if we could, Dr. Dieter, we'll highlight Chopper and maybe have Keith share his. And
Let's do it.
awesome. Oh, there he is. Hey, Chopper.
How you
I think
doing?
there you go, brother. Yeah. So, Chopper, I mean, you've only been on this protocol. I'm not sure for how long, maybe a couple months.
I just looked, 61 days.
61. Okay, man. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. So,
That was fast.
wow. So 2 months. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, man. And I remember, I mean, like, would you just share like what life was like before, like what it's been since you started the protocol?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, hello everyone. My name's Chopper. I'm 49 years old, retired firefighter. Before the protocol, I was up. I hate saying this, but I was like 279 pounds. I'm down to 230, correction, 244 right now. I reversed my type 2 diabetes. The brain fog that I've had for several years is gone. I think clearly, a lot clearly now, more clearly. And it's the inflammation that I had in my body over the years being a fireman and the joint issues and everything I've had is pretty much non-existent. Like it's not there anymore. I sleep amazing now. Like before, I could never sleep. Now I'm sleeping really good. When I lay down, I fall asleep before I toss and turn for 2 hours and then finally go to bed. Um, the good thing about this is the sustainable energy that you get with it. Like it's hard to explain it because it's really clean. It's not jittery. Like I could go. Like I have a weird schedule. I still work in the fire service. I do work in the communication center. So I got weird hours. Tuesday mornings I go in at 3 a.m. and I work 12-hour shift. And I'm not even tired. I get up and I'm ready to roll. And I'm thinking clearly right out the box. And a couple weeks ago, I even told you, Dr. Kenny, I texted you and said, hey, for the first time in about, I don't know, 7 years, I've had to wear my glasses at night to drive. So I don't even wear them anymore at night. It's kind of funny. It's kind of weird. But I still have them. I carry them anyways, just in case something happens. But don't, I don't need them anymore. It's super strange. Um, like I said, I'm down all the weight. That's just the bonus is losing the weight. Honestly, um, I also suffer from like PTSD, and this has really helped me with that because certain things would trigger me, and I would always like real quick like fuse, and my family could ask, they can attest to that. There's some on the call here watching. Um, I'm a lot in better mood now, a lot happier. I just feel like a totally different person. Honestly, just it's been amazing.
I noticed too, you posted a picture of your finger, like you're able to
Oh,
get
I
your
did.
ring
I don't
on,
have my
right?
ring
Yeah.
on. I was cooking dinner right before you got on here. Yeah, I hadn't worn my wedding ring. Man, probably 15 years, I'd say. And last a few days ago, I just said, I want to see if it fits. So I put it on. I was like, oh wow, it fits. It's been a long time since I put it on.
Your
Yeah,
wife, I mean, too, is she, weren't you telling me your wife's done? I mean, like she started the protocol
yeah.
because she saw
Deandra's
your
on it.
results.
She's on here also, listening. She's doing really well. She's down 11 pounds. Her moods are better. She's feeling amazing. It's been life changing. It's really been awesome. I can't say it enough. I just feel like a totally different person. I feel like I'm 20, 30 years younger. It's crazy. It's been awesome.
I love it, man. And I can't believe how much you've transformed in just a couple of weeks. I mean, it's just, we see this over and over, don't we, Dr. Dieter? You just watch people like, and it's so undeniable. Like, I mean, people, you can't even help it. They just like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, I don't know how much, we don't really go by weight loss, but have you noticed too, have you noticed like increase in strength? Have you noticed anything like that? Like, I'm
Mm,
stronger, honest to God, than I've ever been in my life. It's crazy to me.
yeah, honestly, I have. I bought some dumbbells and I've been working out with them just because before I never really didn't have the urge to work out or anything, and if I did, I was like hurting the next day. Like recovery it just sucked. So I have all the lactic acid buildup. Now I don't have any of that. Like so, if I work out really hard or I'll play pickleball and dive all over the court or whatever, like the next day, I'm like, I'm gonna regret that. But no, I wake up and I'm like perfectly fine. Let's go do it again. It's kind of crazy. I wish I would have had this when I was still a firefighter. It would have been amazing. Like, it would have been absolutely amazing.
Man, thank you so much, Chop. I mean,
Oh, thank you.
and if I know Dee has been doing awesome, your wife, and I'm just so happy for you, man.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I appreciate you having me on here and thanks for introducing it to me. It's been awesome.
So grateful for you guys, man.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you.
Keith, I mean, I don't even recognize you. Do you got a beanie on? I don't know who this guy is. Do you know who he is, Dr. Dieter? Look at him.
It's a tad
Oh,
bit brisk here in Northern Illinois,
oh man.
especially when I was in shorts and a t-shirt Friday and snowsuit on Saturday.
Oh, Keith, your transformation, I mean, I didn't remember. I remember you started this protocol the day after my anniversary, my wife, my 20th,
Yeah,
the 12th of June. I always remember that. But I mean, you were pronounced dead, weren't
yeah.
you? Okay.
I was clinically dead for just under a minute before they brought me back.
Wow. And you have been one heck of a, I mean, like you were on, was it 15 different
Yeah,
meds?
15 medications, 6 injections, and that's not including the injections I was getting in my eyes, the injections I was getting in my lower back. Um, I was a hot mess. Um, I mean, I was diabetic on the standard American care for 25 years on it, varying levels of insulin pretty much that whole time, varying levels of medication that entire time as well. At one point, I was on 4 different blood pressure meds, 2 water pills. Um, I mean, it was crazy. And then on top of it, autoimmune disorder,
Yeah, you're
which left,
Guillain-Barré, right?
yeah, which left me with wounds that wouldn't heal. I had wounds on my feet, on my shins that were just, for lack of a better way to put it, just leaking. Um, and obviously, you saw the foot wound that took my life back in January. And it took my life on the day of what was supposed to be one of my daughter's best days, which was her gender reveal party. They called her a half an hour after she found out I was having a grandson that she had to get to the hospital, that I wasn't going to make it. Um, and in fact, we were talking about that on the way home from the airport yesterday, that we got in an argument over end of life paperwork because I wasn't ready to do it, but at the time I realized I had to, because I didn't think I was going to be here in 2 years. I didn't realize just how depressed I was until starting the protocol. And within 2 weeks, I noticed the difference. I was so much more happy to be around. And I heard that again today from a couple people. They're like, "You're a totally different person." But yeah, I mean, within the first 2 days, I was on 108 units of insulin a day. That was gone on day two. The first month, I was down probably about 30 pounds, 40 pounds. And by month three, I was down over 65 pounds, but I had stopped weighing. I moved to Florida and I hadn't weighed myself since until 2 weeks ago. And that's the only reason I know this. I stepped on the scale and I looked at the number and I looked again. I'm like, that is it kilograms? This isn't right. And it was 193 pounds, and I haven't weighed that since I was 14, 15 years old. In fact, my very, very first driver's license said 220 on it for weight. And I was off all my medication at the end of 90 days. No more injections in my eyes. My eye doctor says he's never seen my eyes look this good in over 4 years. I'm no longer type 2 diabetic. My A1C went from 7.5 to now it's almost a flat 5. It's like 5.1. And at the end of 90 days it was 5.6. So it was pretty much reversed then. This just finished it off. Um, my blood work is spot on. My cardiologist is amazed. I've got a meeting with her and my foot doctor, who now shares it with his patients, says I'm a walking billboard. I've got a meeting with him this week while I'm up here, and my cardiologist, just to chat about a few things and thank them for all they did for me and other things. And I mean, it has truly given me my life back. And I never want to put my daughter in the position I put her into earlier this year, which she thanked me for being that way. And I said, well, at least not for 20 more years or more. But you just don't know. how your life's going to be transformed. And I've never been happier in my life. I haven't felt this good. I feel like I'm aging backwards. And um I look forward to spending time with my grandson. I was telling her not to steal his Christmas presents because I know what they are and she knows what they are. And I told her not to steal them. But it has been one amazing journey that I look forward to continuing for many years to come.
It definitely makes you appreciate when you've went through what you went through, man.
It does. It
You know,
truly
I heard a
does.
pastor say that. He said, you know, your story, he goes, the fruit's not for the tree, the fruit's for the person passing by. Our stories, our testimonies are not for us, they're for others. And so there's a reason we went through hell, you know, and I understand Keith very well. I almost died myself twice. And so you really value life better. And thank you for sharing that, brother. And not only that, this summer when I was speaking all over the country, this man drove an hour and a half, two different places to share his testimony with others. So that's what Dr. Dieter's doing. That's why he's doing these presentations, is to let people know that there is hope, that there is opportunity, there is chance, and you've got to be willing to do something different. And why would a medical doctor like Dr. Dieter share this? Why would your doctors look in sharing this with their patients, right? I mean, we are seeing more and more of this, guys, all over the world. So, Keith, thank you so much. Dr. Dieter, do you have anything you want to ask Keith or Chopper or anything, brother, at all?
No, nothing. Thank
I
you
don't know how you
guys.
follow that up, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you guys for moderating and sharing this. Guys, what we want to say is we really are on a mission to help as many people take their health back. We're coming up on the new year where the number one resolution that people make is related to their health. It may be weight or whatever. Yes, weight is commonly, but the number one resolution is always related to the health. And you cannot put a value on your health. You cannot put a value on your life. And if you know people struggling, we have a solution to end their struggles, which speaks to the heart of their issues. So we want to thank you guys for being on here today, but we want to invite you. If you were on here today, especially as a first timer, we want to invite you. We do these 2 times a week, Sundays and Mondays. We're going to be doing this exact same call tomorrow because 70% of adults in the US are on at least one prescription medication, with that number projected to increase to 80% of adults. Sickness is everywhere. The good thing that we now know is that this is reversible. We want as many people to have the good news that their diseases could be reversible. So if you are on here today and there's a friend, a family member, a sister, brother, father, what have you, that you wish would have listened to this because this is going to speak to their issues and give them hope. The same link that you use to sign on to today, invite somebody, to come listen to this same talk tomorrow. We want as many people to become knowledgeable. We do think that any reasonable person, if given the choice, right now, what we do in our healthcare system, meds, and more meds, just chronic management of issues. We think that any reasonable person, if given the choice, option A, meds, and more meds. Option B, reverse the root cause and have a permanent solution that wipes out the medications for the rest of life. Every reasonable person will take option B. So help us spread the word so that option B, people cannot make a choice between just one thing. If it's just one thing, that's one thing. But if you have, two things with the other one being reasonable, people are going to pick the reasonable one all the time. So help us bring as more people to the light of this. So we ask you to invite people to our same talk, same time tomorrow. And I'll end by saying this. We are always looking for people to partner with us. Not enough people know about the solution. There are way too many people sick, then there are way too much of us preaching this message. We want many more town criers to join us to be able to sound the message that there is a solution for a problem almost everybody has. So if you listen to this and it intrigues you and you would like to become part of a worthy mission to help people take their health back, get with whoever invited you. They can tell you about, how to become part of this growing movement and team that is helping people take their health back. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. And if you want the recording of this, again, get with whoever invited you to today's call and we could make that recording available. We hope to see you guys again and some of your invitees tomorrow for this same message. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
All right.